Are we live? I think we are.
We're live. Yeah, absolutely.
What's up, Joe? We got Mr. Joe Califf in the house tonight, and me, Will, and we're gonna watch the Artemis I launch together. How you feeling, Joe?
I was feeling better about an hour ago, right? Looks like a few things have popped up with this Artemis mission, that might be impacting the launch window that we have here, but I'm still really hopeful that everything goes according to plan. They get everything fixed, and we're going to get to witness a launch tonight.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I think cloud cover, the weather and everything looks really good.
Yeah.
Cloud cover may not be perfect for those that are maybe in Titusville or around the surrounding Cocoa Beach area, or if they're there for the launch. So we may actually have one of the best seats in the house tonight.
Exactly.
I know it's like 70 degrees out there right now in Titusville, which is pretty nice compared to what it was, this late summer when we went to try to catch it. But yeah, so we've got the live stream here going. Joe's got some awesome stuff to present to us on what Artemis I really is. And this is going to be a historic night if it does fly tonight. We're going to set a little bit of a precedence here, right?
That's right. I mean, we're embarking on kind of a new phase, an era of space exploration with NASA and this Artemis mission. This is Artemis 1. We've got an Artemis 2 that's going to follow, Artemis 3, 4, 5, 6, and beyond. And really, the goal is to try to get people to Mars and using the moon as a base for that, right? And so a lot of components that go into that, but they've got to test the systems first, make sure everything works according to plan before they can put people on board and give that a test. So I'm super stoked about it. I've never been out there to actually watch a launch live. Will, I know you said you went out there a few months back to watch what was supposed to be the launch back then. How many of these rocket launches have you actually had a chance to witness?
It depends on what you mean by rocket launches, because some of them were really tall hops. But I think I would say 3 rocket launches, 3 or 4 rocket launches, and maybe 3 or 4 high altitude tests, like the ones they were doing down in Boca Chica.
Right.
So somewhere in less than 10, but more than 5, and it's an experience, man. I can tell you that it's definitely something you have to experience because you feel it.
Yeah. I've heard the same thing, man, and I'm certainly jealous of you. I'm jealous of other people who've had the chance to actually be there in person and witness it, kind of feel the roar of those engines as those rockets go up. But man, I mean, if this goes off tonight, this is going to be a monumental milestone, like I said, for NASA, for SLS, for the Artemis program, and everything else. But hey, I think we've got some people who are checking in, and
looks like Don Davies. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. There, you go ahead.
Well, we've got Astronomo Space. There he is. What time in UK? Well, we've got an hour until the window opens, right? Or actually, 30 minutes we've got until the window opens, and then I think we get like a 2-hour window. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what my understanding is as well. And yeah, so it could be any time during that period. But you see there in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, we've got a T-minus 29 minutes, which again, that opens the window. So we'll see what happens. And Victoria has a little smiley face with stars in it. All right. Well, we're hoping to get some of that. Sean Joshua Gibson says hello. Hey, Sean, how are you? Todd, you left a blank.
Said nothing. Yeah, he wrote a blank check.
Hey, from Missouri. Exactly. Kyle, how are you doing? Glad you're able to join us from Missouri. TJ, hello to you too. Salih, hi from Iraq. Oh, we've got somebody from Iraq across the world watching this live streams. Hello to you too. And we'll get to more of those here in just a bit. But you can see there on the screen the entire rocket is there ready to go. It looks like they're just trying to work out a few kinks. Will, I think you said you were looking on Twitter, saw that there was an issue with an Ethernet cable.
Yeah, I've been watching on Twitter. If you want to follow who I'm following, it's at NASA Ground Sys, SYS. I don't know if that is even coming through there, but
yep, we could see that at NASA Ground SYS.
That's who I'm following, and I've got alerts on, so everything they tweet out tonight or at all, I get it. We're dealing with a range issue now. Hey, Don, good to see you.
Hey, our good friend Don.
And so there's a radar station nearby somewhere that has an Ethernet cable that has gone bad. And it is an Ethernet cable issue at this point. We did have a hydrogen leak earlier.
Yeah.
From what I understand, they sent the Red Crew out there, which hasn't really been done since, I guess, the shuttle or the Apollo missions. They kind of had to send people out there, even with a full rocket, with fuel and stuff. And apparently they satisfied the leak. They had a leak in the replenish valve. There is no more leaks. So we're good to go, it looks like, from that perspective.
And I don't know if you heard differently, but I heard it was a loose bolt that they had to go in and tighten for this.
Yeah. And, that's going to happen. I mean, this thing's been rolled back and forth a couple of times here. And there was a hurricane, that did it. So that's always fun.
Absolutely. And Carl Hamilton says, would love to see a rocket launch in person. Yeah, I would too, Carl. Couldn't make this one here tonight, but hopefully the next one. Like I said, Will's had an opportunity to see several of them, but Will, I mean, it's a crapshoot at times, right? Sometimes you go out there and Mother Nature or mechanical systems, other things like that tend to interfere. So it's just a hit or miss type of proposition, right?
Yeah, even with a company as consistent and good at launching as SpaceX. SpaceX does have delays and cancellations and stuff. So you could be out there with an hour's worth of your camera rig set up, ready to go, and then it's scrubbed. So you never know. It is a crapshoot. You put your money on a number and you roll the dice and see what happens.
So how many of those have you been to where nothing absolutely happened and you had to just basically drive home empty-handed?
With some of the Boca Chica stuff, I was there for like a week and a half or almost 2 weeks. So I would say more than 10. There's probably been more scrubs that I've gone
more scrubs, huh?
Unfortunately,
yeah. But hey, the payoff's worth it, right?
Yeah, and like the TLC song, I don't want no scrubs. So.
We've got Anand from India watching. Hey, welcome, Anand. Thanks for jumping on tonight and watching with us. Mark Morissette says, good evening from Vancouver. Hey, Will, we've got an international audience here. We've got Canada, Iraq, India, watching from Austin, Texas, a little bit closer to us, guys. There you go. Hey, James, how's it going?
Like a whole other country, though. Spencer Pratt.
There's Spencer. Hey, Spencer, how are you? Spencer was out with us at the El Dorado start party just a few weeks ago. So
taking some awesome images out there.
That's right. I got to see those. The Astro Cave saying hello from Florida, Tampa. Hey, how's it going? You're not too far from the launch there.
Yeah, Astro Cave. What's up?
Good to see. Kyle says, what's the Artemis mission about? And actually, we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Like I said, it really is an opportunity for us to get back to the moon and ultimately to Mars. But we'll talk about what the Artemis mission is, what its science goals are, and all of those things here in just a few minutes.
Spoiler alert in the video behind Joe there, though. Cody.
And there we go, Cody. How's it going? Jeremy Veldman says radar issue. Yeah, that's what we're hearing as well.
Ethernet issue. It's always an Ethernet.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, if they were just using Wi-Fi, they wouldn't have that issue.
Yeah, what? I mean, come on.
What could possibly go wrong with Wi-Fi? Hello from Forest Hill, California. Not screen mirroring to my TV tonight. Awesome.
There you go.
Spencer says, I love it. Go in Titan, says the closed captions. All right. And there's Carl. Shout out from Groves, Texas. Right.
Carl, how you doing, man?
Yeah, there you go. I am bound and determined to make the manned Artemis launch. Yeah, Don, that's going to be absolutely awesome. And I think you're going to see, should this go pretty well and everything looks to be on schedule, you're going to see a tremendous amount of people heading out there to Florida for that particular event. So, well, I figured, we'll just take a few minutes and actually look at what Artemis actually is and why it's so important, right? And this is something that's been in the works for a number of years, right? And here you can see a picture similar to the one that we were seeing in that live stream of the Space Launch System with the Orion spacecraft on the top there at Kennedy Space Center. So this is launching from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And what is Artemis and why are we going to the moon, right? And there's a number of things that we want to do with Artemis. If you take a look back, it's been over 50 years since man has been back to the moon. And 1972 actually was the last time that man had been to the moon. So there are a couple of things that NASA wanted to accomplish with the Artemis mission. First is, developing and demonstrating a lot of the new technologies and capabilities that are required to get to Mars, right? So if you're going to make it to Mars, you've got to at least be able to make it to the moon. The moon is certainly a stepping stone to that. But if you're going to be at the moon, you might as well do a little bit of science, right? And so there's a lot that they want to do to learn more about the moon. Like I said, it's been at least, it's been 50 years since the last Apollo mission there to the moon. And so they want to do more science, with a lot of the new technologies and capabilities that we have. Third is kind of an important one, right? We're starting to see a lot of other nations take a more prominent role in space exploration and whatnot, and that's an important thing. But we really want to kind of reestablish the American leadership and strategic presence on the moon, while helping to kind of grow that global economic impact. And so we always say NASA is the best brand that has ever come out of the United States, right? You can go anywhere in the world and people are aware of NASA. But it is a wonderful brand ambassador and has had a tremendous impact on a lot that we've done from an economic perspective. And then, the last bullet point there is really kind of the key thing. We really want to use this mission and going to the moon to hopefully inspire a new generation of explorers and pioneers and encourage careers in STEM. And so, the hope is that through this Artemis mission, will inspire some young child at some point to want to be that first person to walk on Mars, and hopefully they'll take this as inspiration and get into a STEM program and career that helps them get there. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the video here, but we're going to talk about some of the mission priorities. With Artemis 1, and this mission that's launching tonight is Artemis 1, right? This is going to be the first Artemis mission. It is unmanned. It's not going to have any humans on board. But really what they want to do is demonstrate a few things. First and foremost, making sure that heat shield on the Orion crew capsule works the way that it's supposed to do during reentry, right? If you can't get that to work properly, reentry into the Earth's atmosphere is not going to be a fun ride. And that's something that they need to be able to demonstrate. And unfortunately, you can simulate a lot of that here on Earth, but it's not quite the same thing as actually demonstrating it by coming through the Earth's atmosphere. The second thing they want to do is really operate the systems in a flight environment. Like I said, you can simulate this all you want, but doing it in real time in kind of a simulated flight, in a real flight environment, I should say, just can't be beat. Third thing, they want to be able to demonstrate the retrieval of the spacecraft. And then fourth, they've got a number of kind of secondary missions that they want to achieve, which includes the launching of several CubeSats. So, Will, I don't know if you've ever participated in any CubeSat projects. I started to a couple of years ago, but those are really interesting projects. You've got these really small satellites that contain, really small payloads and things like that, but we're able to gather a lot of great information. So they want to capture that, test some of the pressurized payloads and whatnot as part of this mission. So here's what it's going to look like. Over there on the left-hand side, you can see this is Artemis 1. They're going to launch this, do a lot of that testing that we talked about. Artemis 2, which Don actually alluded to a little earlier, that's going to be the first humans to orbit the moon in the 21st century. So similar to Apollo 8, when Apollo 8 launched, went to the moon, didn't land, but actually orbited the moon and then came back. Artemis 2 is going to be doing the same thing. And then you're going to see subsequent Artemis missions that are going to happen between Artemis 2 and Artemis 3. And eventually Artemis 3 will get us to the moon itself. So that's going to be pretty damn exciting when that happens, when we could get humankind back on the moon itself. And then, this is the system that is actually being used to get the crew, the payloads, and everything else to the moon. So this is the Space Launch System. And it is the most powerful rocket ever built, although some people will argue otherwise, right? But, I thought the interesting thing about this more than anything else is they actually used repurposed, I should say, the RS-25 engines that came off of the old space shuttle program itself to help reduce costs. And so these rockets, I was looking at it earlier, the four rockets that are on the SLS today were actually reused on several missions. One of them actually helped get John Glenn back onto, launched on the space shuttle back in 1998. So that's, I think, pretty interesting. But you could see there, it's got a tremendous kind of main core. It's got those solid rocket boosters. And then up at the top, you've got the Orion spacecraft itself, which is what is ultimately going to house the manned uh, the crew that's going to go up into space and then eventually to the moon itself. And this is just kind of a breakdown of what the SLS looks like. Like I said, you've got the core stage that's painted there in the orange, the 4R-25 engines. You know, most of those, like we said, repurposed from the shuttle program. You got a couple solid rocket boosters, and then the upper stage that includes the Orion crewed spacecraft. And then here's the Orion itself. And this is where, you know, if you're looking at it, that crew module, I don't know if it looks like it to you, Will, but that is very reminiscent, at least in this image, of the old Apollo command module, right? It's got kind of that same shape and design. And look, we understand technologically and in every other way, it couldn't be any different, right? But it just kind of harkens back to those Apollo days, which is what this Artemis mission is kind of trying to do, right? So, you know, that is really kind of the key part of this entire mission, the crew module, making sure that we're able to get people safely into space, onto the moon, and back. And just for you know, size sake, if you've ever seen the Apollo module, if you've ever been at the Johnson Space Center or any other places that have either mock-ups or actual you know, versions of the Apollo command modules, you'll notice that this is actually much larger, right? So when you take a look, you've got the Orion space capsule itself. You've got some of the other components and those solar panels as well that kind of come out and help provide power to the system as well. But you could see down at the bottom what an actual you know, human would look like in size comparison to the rest of the system. So it is pretty impressive. And eventually, this is what is going to happen with Artemis I, right? So it's going to launch. It'll go through a series of translunar injections and things like that, and then eventually make its way around the Earth's orbit, or excuse me, the moon, and then splash back down onto Earth itself. So that was it. That's just kind of a rough breakdown of what Artemis I is going to accomplish, and you know, it all starts tonight with that launch. Will,
Can you bring that last slide up again, Joe?
yeah, absolutely.
Because somebody asked earlier, how long will TJ asked, how long will the trip take there? It's only a few days to get to the moon, but you notice the mission is over a month, or a little over a month, or about a month. So it's a long mission. And like you said, Joe, they're going to be testing like everything, testing how much radiation exposure you're going to be getting at that distance and all that stuff. It's very, very cool. Wanted to say hey to Tony Bendel in the house, and Jeff.
Tony,
great job, Joe. You
yeah,
know,
one other thing I was going to say is,
yeah,
you know, they are going to have this thing in the command in the Orion module
a
itself.
Moonikin, right?
This is the Moonikin. This is
Yeah,
Moonikin Campos. So this is a
Moonikin
fully
campus.
suited mannequin, and this will be seated out there. It's got two sensors in there, one under the headrest, another one behind the seat. And it's going to record acceleration and vibration throughout the mission. And it's got additional accelerometers inside the Orion that's going to provide some additional data. But you know, like Will said earlier, you've got the radiation sensors, you've got these acceleration and vibration sensors and things like that. And so they really want to use this as an opportunity to kind of understand what the impact's going to be on an actual human who's going to be eventually sitting atop this rocket at some point, and make sure that everything is going to be safe and comfortable for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta test the system before you know, do crazy stuff like you know, land on the moon.
Land on the moon, right?
Which is wild, you know. It and like what Jeremy said, you know, we've got to go back to the moon to prove these people wrong. It you know, I have a lot of those kind of people who deny the first one are going to deny this one too. So
Yeah, I
we'll
mean,
see.
there's nothing you could do yeah, there's nothing you could do to satisfy those people, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they're gonna believe that this has never happened, and that's just the way it is, right? But you know, eventually when we get there, right? We talked about Artemis II being somewhat the equivalent of the Apollo 8 mission. where it'll launch from Earth and eventually orbit the moon itself, and then it'll get to a pretty close um, distance from the moon's surface, and then eventually return back to the Earth. But that will actually be a manned mission. So those folks won't actually land on the moon, but will orbit and traverse the moon and then eventually come back to Earth itself. That's expected to be about a 10-day mission or so. So a little bit longer than what we saw with the Apollo missions, at least the early Apollo missions and whatnot, but we'll carry 4 astronauts. And then eventually Artemis III is when they plan on landing on the moon itself. So that is pretty exciting. That's not going to happen anytime prior to 2024. So we've got a couple of years before anything like this will happen. But that's eventually the goal here with the Artemis mission.
Yeah, and those timelines, they're pesky.
I know.
We were supposed to have launched this mission, I think, at the beginning of 2020 or something like that.
Right.
And
right.
delay. Of course, we all know the story of Webb, the James Webb Space Telescope. We all know the story there. So these timelines are, no earlier than. That's what I always tell people with rockets. It's never a like, here's when the launch is. It's a no earlier than
Exactly.
this date, right? So
Yep.
just gotta watch and kind of do the thing. And Dawn brings up an interesting point that I was actually going to try. If we can get the data from this mission and we know where it's going to be and when, absolutely, I would say you could pick up the module. But what I think will happen is you're going to need to know basically where in the sky to put a telescope, take a bunch of long time exposures, and let that dot of light go across your field of view, because that's what I think you're actually going to see. You're not going to see any detail of this thing. It's such a small module.
Yeah, we saw the size of the kind of the Orion capsule and some of the associated parts, and so that's probably the size of a small bus or something like that. And at 100,000, 200,000 miles, that is going to be a pretty tough thing to spot with the telescope. So I haven't heard much about the reflectivity of some of those components, but
it's going to be pretty low albedo. I mean, the solar panels, right? Mirrors, if they're pointed right at you, it's going to glint at you. But
that's got to be a kind of a perfect alignment type of thing, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like, think about it. Like 90, it'll orbit the Earth every 90 minutes, but it's going to go into TLI, or translunar injection, I think, fairly quickly after its launch, or maybe they leave it in an orbit for a little while. I forget exactly, but
I believe it was going to be fairly quick, right? Within 18 minutes or so, they were going to go into TLI, but I'll double check on that. But it's something where if you happen to be at the right place at the right time on Earth this evening or this morning, you might be able to see something, but shortly after that, I'm not sure if we'll have that opportunity.
Yeah, and here's a live view of the rocket right now, thanks to NASA and the crew. It looks like we're in a T-minus 10-minute hold.
A hold there, yep.
I think can be normal in some cases.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing anything on Twitter yet, and like I said, I have alerts set. So I mean, as that stuff comes across, we'll see it. That's from the NASA's Exploration Ground Systems Twitter. Their last tweet was 25 minutes ago, just saying that the Red Crew had successfully fixed the hydrogen leak, the ever-present hydrogen leak, which is apparently hydrogen is a pesky fuel to use because the molecules are small and you have to keep it very cold and very pressurized. So that's why they call it rocket science.
You would think as the most abundant material in the universe that we could do better with it, but yeah, you're right, it is tough. And I've got a friend who is was a flight director for the International Space Station, and as brilliant as she is, probably the most brilliant thing I ever heard her say is space is hard, right?
Space is hard.
Really hard.
Yeah, which is, it's almost like it's mostly empty space out there. So is it really?
And it's not very friendly, right? Not to humans.
No, our bodies don't want to live outside of this thin film of atmosphere we have on this planet. So that's why we take our atmosphere with us. That's why if you could just go out into space, I mean, I'm sure we'd have ladders there by now, but that you have to take your atmosphere with you. And unfortunately, to do that, you have to do what NASA's about to do. Hopefully, they're about to do it. But again, this could be a scrub.
It could
Uh,
be, right? Yeah, we'll stay right here, see what's happening. The good thing is we are within we're at T minus 10 minutes and holding. So,
yeah.
if they're able to get everything resolved and going okay, then, we should be able to hopefully witness that launch.
I don't know, Joe. That guy rotating in that chair very haphazardly has me worried. He didn't look very. He didn't. Oh, sorry, Joe. Go
No,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
I don't remember which one you were on there.
It
We
was
get the same ideas at the same time. It's hilarious, but we
better
do
hope all the meaties don't shoot it down. Yeah, exactly. And then Spencer, I don't know if y'all paid much attention to current CGI, but they couldn't even fake a moon landing today.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And back in the 60s, even less so. I mean, come on, the particle
Yeah,
physics. Yeah.
yeah. And Brad says, I've read that the moon dust can be problematic. It clings to everything. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And that's something that when the when the Apollo astronauts came back to Earth, I mean, their suits were just covered in that dust from the lunar regolith, the surface of the moon itself. And that's something that they plan for in these missions, right? If you're re-entering a craft from the lunar surface, you've got to make sure that you can protect all the sensitive electronics and everything else from that dust, and it doesn't impact the functionality of all of those systems. So
And there was a study done, Joe, that said if the astronauts had only taken their shoes off before they got inside, wipe their feet a little bit,
wipe their feet on the mat. Exactly.
Well, an interesting anecdote about that lunar dust is it's hydrostatically charged because of I
Yes,
think it's solar particles hitting it or something
exactly.
like that.
Yep.
And so it clings to everything. It's like
Everything. Yep.
it's like static cling. So you stick your arm in a foam package. Sometimes when you get a big package or whatever, you pull your
Yeah.
arm out and those foam peanuts are stuck to you. That's
Yep.
what the dust is going to do, but on a like molecular level. And that stuff is sharp.
Yes.
Kind of like asbestos. You don't want to breathe it in, but those guys did. I think
Yeah.
they describe in some of those documentaries that it smells metallic and like
Yep.
burnt steak and things like that, which is what they describe spaces smelling like burning beef or some kind of metallic smell, which is odd. I didn't know space had a smell or that it could. But there you go.
Yeah, I've heard the metallic smell. The burning beef I hadn't heard before, but I could see
Mhm.
something like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Probably somebody cooking a steak or something that shouldn't have been cooking.
Yeah, you got a few days to kill on the
You got
journey
a
back from
neighbor
the moon, right?
barbecuing out on the moon, you know how it
Oh,
goes.
exactly. You got that Weber grill fired up in the
John
those
Davies
scrubs.
gonna get us copyright struck by TLC. I guess that's only counts if we sing it, right? Not if we mention it.
Yeah, no, we don't want to sing it at all. Exactly.
Yeah.
And first off, you don't want to hear us singing, period. So, that's just not going to be
No, not really. Why do you think I'm an instrumental musician?
and I'm not a musician. Uh, I was going to say musician at all.
You're definitely a magician, though, Joe. I mean, you've got.
I don't know, man. I saw your picture from the El Dorado Star Party of the Orion Nebula. That thing was pretty awesome. You had to be
I
a
think that was
magician to pull some of that stuff off.
a cosmic accident. I think is what happened because I was probably moving the way the image was drifting or something. It's and I only got it once. You saw it. Like we tried again.
Oh, we tried, and it just didn't work for whatever reason. And I'm going to see if I can pull that up and share that with everybody because, like I said, Will,
Yeah.
what you did was absolutely incredible and needs to be shared by everybody else, or with everybody else.
Well, thank you.
Let me pull that up here.
You can see there that looks like Kennedy Space Center, maybe, or something in Rocket Center. I can't read it.
Yeah,
That's
we'll go
Kennedy
to
right there.
that's Kennedy. Yep.
They're going to interview some people about things. And again, this is the feed we have here is the NASA feed. We're gonna be riffing over this, kind of like Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Exactly.
Probably less funny, but
And less
maybe
robots too.
one less robot. Yeah, although we might be able to work that out. There it is.
There it is. So you can see that up there. This was an image that Will took with his iPhone, handheld at the eyepiece of a telescope. 10-second exposure, I believe it was, Will, right?
Yeah, I think either that one was a 10 or maybe a 30, but I think that was a 10. I think I'm almost
Yeah, can't remember what the time was, but yeah, it was
yeah.
still a long enough exposure time to be able to, have a tough time to hold it by hand, right? So Will held this phone up with his hand, no adapters, no nothing else like that, with by hand, holding it up to the eyepiece, and took this image. Which I shared this with some people who've been in astronomy for some time, and they just kind of shook their head. They're like, "Man, this is better than anything I took back in the old film days." So, and back then they would have to expose it for quite some time and hope that it came out once they got it developed. So, kudos to you, Will. This is an
Yeah.
awesome photo.
Well, thanks. And, we have to mention the 25-inch obsession that was being run by Mr. Joe Califf that helped gather those photons. And I can tell y'all that that image that you're seeing on the screen there is really, really close to what we were seeing in the eyepiece. The colors were almost as vibrant. Of course, your eye doesn't do as good a job, right? We all know that. But I've seen color in the Orion Nebula before, and I was seeing those salmon or
Yeah, just
fuchsias or whatever you want to call it. I was seeing those, especially at that rainbow wall right above the really bright part there.
yeah.
That, and so, I put the phone up to I put the phone up to the eyepiece and said, "Hey, let's see what can happen." Because it's a new phone. It's the new iPhone 14. And when I got the image back, I think it was the first one I took, or maybe it was the second one. And it was just like, wow, I can't believe here we are, in this
Yeah.
technology on a cell phone. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, it's just crazy, right? To get an image like this, and like you said, in the eyepiece itself, I mean, it's pretty neat. It looked almost three dimensional, right?
Yeah,
The skies were just that good, and the seeing and everything else.
really tight.
But
Skies were
yeah,
tight.
the skies were tight. You're seeing a lot of stars that you just normally didn't see in the Orion Nebula. A lot of the like the ENF stars and beyond, and the trapezium there, kind of that central area that's this bright glowing area here known as the trapezium. So I saw a lot of stars in that area that you normally don't see. But again, just to
Yeah.
capture this with an iPhone handheld, man, is just absolutely incredible. So
And that
again,
was,
kudos to you.
yeah, thank you, man. And that was, like you said, that was striking. I remember I've seen those stars before, but for some reason in your scope that night, those little stars you were talking about around the trapezium were just unbelievable because
Yeah,
they were so pinpoint, and there was, I mean, a dozen of them or more that
yeah.
are far dimmer than the trapezium. But that was such a cool thing. And I think it was tracking, wasn't it?
No, Will was tracking it by hand. I'm just joking. Yeah, it was tracking. So, in order to get an image like this, you would have to have some sort of tracking on the system. And it was holding a pretty good track. The tracking was holding pretty well for a period of time. But like I said, a lot of this is Will's own steady handwork. So just awesome job, Will.
Yeah, thank you, man. I guess I should have been a sniper or a surgeon. One of those jobs. Ding ding.
Ding ding, indeed. Right. For those of you who don't get the reference, that is something that is said by
Jimmy Lowry.
Jimmy Lowry. Thank you. His
Our
name
friend
escaped
Jimmy
me.
Lowry at the
Jimmy Lowry up in Fort Davis, Texas. He's got a 48-inch telescope, and Don was up there one night when we had the opportunity to take a look through that telescope, and because that thing is so big, Jimmy's got to let everybody know that it's
yeah,
moving, right? So the way he
yeah.
did it was by yelling out "ding ding,"
And then
and
you
that was
just
your
hear you could literally park an airplane fuselage in this thing. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah, that thing was crazy. Yeah,
it's a
absolutely.
48-inch Dobsonian, so yeah, 48 inches of light gathering power, and it's F5.
F5. Yeah, we're hanging off the side of a mountain in this
Yeah,
observatory that is just there on the side of a mountain, right? Climbing up a
yeah.
ladder. How tall was that ladder, Will?
I think it's a 17 or 18-foot orchard ladder.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. It
Something
seemed
like that.
it seemed huge at the time, and I remember the first time climbing it while there was still a little bit of daylight left. It's like, man, this is a little frightening, a little scary. But
Yeah.
once you get used to it, it was no big deal. 3 o'clock in the morning, we're just up and down that ladder like no big deal. But it's a little bit intimidating when you first
Some
get out there.
cardio. It's some
Yeah,
cardio.
exactly. Got a good leg workout that night.
Yeah, even if you're not, if you're taking in the view, it's even better, I guess. But it's like a carrot
Yeah,
at the end of a stick, a really long ladder stick. To
yeah.
climb out there to look at the ghost of Jupiter or something like that.
We
Uh,
are. Go
well,
ahead.
I got an update a second ago. We are in our current plan T-10 hold. Currently, the upper stage liquid hydrogen is 78% filled. Core stage is has been topped off. Both liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen are 100%. The Ethernet switch has been replaced and will be verified. So I guess after they get that crew, I would assume this is on Playa Linda. Again, don't quote me on that, but I guarantee you if it was on Playa Linda, that's why it took them 70 minutes to go change an Ethernet port, because
Right.
it's way out there. It could be a radar station somewhere else. I don't know. But that could mean that once they're done, this T-10 could start the window, and the window, start is 2 hours, right, Joe? So they could launch immediately after the 10, and we could be watching this thing fly in a few minutes here. This is pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm hoping for, and I know everybody else is as well, right? We came here to watch a rocket launch and see everything go according to plan, and that's what we're hoping for here. But yeah, I was just looking for additional updates, and that seems to be the latest one that I've got as well. So let's hope that they're able to get this clock started up soon again.
Yep. And there's the rocket from earlier, a drone flight that I was able to pull off. I'm just kidding. That's not my drone flight.
That would be awesome, though, wouldn't it?
I was dreaming about this last night, and they recorded my dream somehow. I was flying around the rocket. So
there you go.
Don is correct. That was an epic night. Spencer doesn't care for tall ladders in the dark. I understand. Spencer has a reservation for that. Spencer's got a war story for breaking his arm at the El Dorado Star Party.
Oh, really?
In the middle of the night, and having to drive himself to the El Dorado Hospital with one arm after breaking his arm. And Spencer's a true star trooper without the ship, I guess, right? Even though that was a great movie. He's a star trooper because he got injured in the field, in the field of battle in 2020. Man. And was able to get
kudos to you, Spencer. I know it's not first getting injured out there, second finding a hospital out there.
Oh man, come on!
Right?
There's one, and I mean, you got to drive north to El Dorado, and all they ever deal with is like snake bites.
Yeah.
And I think they told him. They were like, "Man, you need to go home, and you need to find a surgeon immediately." So I think that's what he had to do, and he had to pack up that year. But luckily, Spencer was able to overcome his sort of I guess past experiences with the El Dorado Star Party. He came back, he joined us, and I think he was on Lodge Field with us, which was fantastic. We had me, there was Lonnie Mosley we just had here. We wanted to say hi to him. It was Mr. Joe Califf right there in the window. He was set up with us. We had Bram Wiseman, of course, who's a good friend of ours. A lot of y'all know.
The amateur astronomer. Yep.
That's him. That's the one. And there was a good group of us, and that's what I was talking about, Joe. Is like it was a record year as far as El Dorado Star Party Lodge Field goes.
Yeah, no, it really was.
People, it was fantastic.
Yeah, in years past, I mean, we've talked about this before, Will. At some point, a lot of those people on the Lodge Field would just kind of retire early. By 1 o'clock or so, there'd be, I don't know, 4 or 5 of us out on the field. And this year, especially early on those good nights, there were just a lot more people. Which, look, when we go to star parties, the party part of it is fun, right? So having people out there, getting a chance to take a look through other people's telescopes, talking about equipment, all these things. That's what really makes these things fun. So it was certainly a banner year for ESP.
It was, man. And, I think we got most of the nights were viewable in some way. We did have a couple of bad nights. Of course, you're going to have that at star parties. That's just the way it goes. And, you do what you can. It's a star party. That's why you go out all week, at least you plan around that. So then, if you get a clear night here and there, you can fit it in, and then, maybe you get 3 in a row, and then it's a rest night, the night the clouds come in, who knows? But it's always a crapshoot, man. It's just like rockets, everything else. Every hobby that I love is dependent on weather.
Dependent on the weather. I was thinking about that the other day. It seems like that's the way it is for me too. Right. And you're just hoping for clear, sunny days, those kinds of things, or cloudless nights, whatever it may be. But man, everything is dependent on the weather, man.
That's right. And not the weather man, but the weather.
Not the weather man, but
man.
Man.
Don Davies says, see you at the X Bar for 2023. Yes, you will. Yes, you
The
will.
annular eclipse. Yeah, absolutely.
Dawn has been to past El Dorados in the past and set up on the lot show with us actually, which was
Oh,
awesome.
nice.
Her and our friend Brian Lippincott, who is a staple at star parties. These two, so it was good to have them there, and I'm excited to see y'all again for the 2023 annular. That's what, October. So next El Dorado, there will be
Next El Dorado.
just it's like a mile north of the ranch is the center line for an
Yeah.
annular lunar or solar eclipse. Sorry,
Yep.
annular solar eclipse. So that's going to be fantastic.
It will. And for those who aren't familiar with what an annular is, differs from a total eclipse in that the entire surface of the sun, or the visible surface of the sun, is not covered by the moon itself. So the moon will be a little bit further away, which means it appears smaller to us. And when it passes over the face of the sun, it actually leaves a little ring of fire, and they call it the ring of fire type of eclipses that you could see. So still not really safe to observe naked eye, but I've never had a chance to see one, and they say they're absolutely spectacular. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a full Ring of Fire at all. I mean, I've heard the song, but
Johnny Cash song, exactly. I don't think he was talking about the annular
I'm
eclipses or
gonna
anything
go
like
ahead
that.
and say that he was. Art is subjective, and I don't know. Spencer says music is a hobby. Yeah, it kind of is, but I don't know. It's a hobby I can make money on, which is cool. And it's not weather dependent, so I guess he's right. It's still kind of a hobby that I don't have to depend on clouds for, right? I can just
That's
come in
it.
here and make music, which is always
That's
fun.
it.
And TJ says, haven't made it to a star party yet, but it's on my list as soon as I can. Joe, I mean, you've been to more than a few star parties. I know you can vouch for the awesomeness of those things.
Yeah, man, it's I look forward to them, and the great thing is where we live here in Texas, there are a few of them that are within a decent drive that you can make it out to, that have awesome skies, great facilities, things like that. Every year the Texas Star Party never fails to just leave a lasting impression. Have a great time out there. The skies are absolutely fantastic. The El Dorado Star Party, different but awesome in its own right. Each of these have their own characteristics. They're both can't misses. And I've never been out to the Okie Star Party, but I know you love that Star Party. Will you
do.
rave about Okie
I
year
do.
after year. So one of these years, I'm going to have to make it out there.
It's a good one, man. And like Lonnie says, El Dorado Star Party is underrated. Once you go, you'll be back. And
Yeah.
and like Spencer says, yeah, it's a decent drive for Texas. That's right, because like if you were on the East Coast, you could go from like Connecticut to like the top of Vermont or something by the time you drove as far as we do for these things, even being
Yeah.
at the thing. But Okie Texas is the best around. Lonnie says that. I think so too. I feel like one of my favorite star parties is El Dorado, because that was my first real star party. I'd
Yeah.
been to Hodges Gardens, which was kind of a low key event. It wasn't a full week thing like El Dorado was. When I went to the El Dorado Star Party and got my first like Monday through Sunday, I knew star parties were for me. And
Yeah.
you kind of got to go and figure out if it's something you want to do. Tent camp it, stay in a hotel nearby if you can't tent camp it. But a lot of the cool thing about the El Dorado Star Party is that it's closer to civilization than some of the others. Like Texas is a little further.
Right.
Texas Star Party still has lodging in Fort Davis, which is only like 7 miles away.
Yeah. The first
So
time I went out to TSP, I did a off-site lodging option, and it was totally fine. It's one of these things where I couldn't get a motel room there in time, and quite frankly, I knew a few people, but not enough to say, hey, share a room with this
can I
person, because
sleep
that
on
is.
your sofa? Yeah, sure. Random dude that I kind of know. Right there. Sleep on that.
Exactly, but that's one of the requirements at the Texas Star Parties. If you're going to stay in a motel room, you've got to have a roommate, and if you're going to stay in a bunkhouse, obviously you're going to have many roommates. So finding people that you're comfortable and sharing a room with, that's something you've got to be able to do. But the first year I went out there, I wasn't that comfortable with it, right? So I stayed at the Texas Parks and Wildlife has a state park there nearby, the Fort Davis State Park, and they have the Indian Lodge there, which is a kind of a full service hotel. And I
Yeah.
stayed out there. It was absolutely fantastic. Now, the one thing you do miss though, if you stay off site, is that ability to just power through an entire evening and a night of observing and then walk 30 feet to your room. So that is something that
That
I
is,
can't.
yeah.
Yeah, you got to get a room, right? If you can somehow
If you
swing it.
can. And
Yeah.
and tent camp. I tent camped at multiple star parties, at Okie-Tex, at Texas, at Hodges Gardens. I've never tent camped at El Dorado, but I was in a pop-up tent, or a pop-up trailer. What do they call those? Like
Yeah, those pop-up campers or
yeah,
whatnot, or
yeah,
the
whatever
popping.
they
Yeah,
that was what we had
yeah.
the time, and it was like 28 degrees that year. So it was cold. But it's doable. You get in your sleeping bag, once you get in there, you're warm.
Yeah,
You're out there to observe or take images anyways. So, if you prep for the cold, I think even if you're going to a star party in the spring or even in the summer, sometimes prep for cold, man. Bring jackets, bring heavy. I bring like snow pants,
yeah.
um, heated jackets. Like Lonnie has a heated jacket. There's some other guys that have like full on like snow apparel. I think our buddy Bram wears like a big onesie that
It's like something you would
it's
wear down in the in like on an Antarctic
yeah, no, and
science base or something like that,
all
right?
you can
It's pretty
see is like
crazy.
this much of his face because it's
Yeah,
zipped up. But whatever it takes to keep you warm, because if you can keep warm, you'll stay outside and stay observing. And you'll
yeah.
see more. You'll see way more.
No, you absolutely will. That last night we were at the El Dorado Star Party. Well, it got down to what was it, 43 degrees or something like that, maybe low 40 somewhere. But
Mhm.
there was enough moisture in the air that it got cold, and we all headed back, put on, some additional layers and whatnot. I brought some, the thermals that I wear when I go skiing, put those on, had two shirts on top of that. I was wearing three layers at a minimum. And once I got back outside, it was fine, right? Allowed us to kind of power through until the dew got us.
Yeah, have some coffee, have some hot cocoa, have a hot dog at Texas Star Party and Okie-Tex. They have a
Yeah,
midnight cafe, so if you want a burger, you can go down and get one of those. It's really really cool. It's something that you should experience, like Joe was saying, because it will change your outlook not only on astronomy, but on your observing or your imaging or your whatever you're doing.
yeah,
Even if you're just there to socialize, it'll change your perspective on that too. And it's a really cool crowd. There's a really good community out there, and everybody's usually super chill. You can walk up to people and ask for views. They'll be like, "Hey, come over." You spend most of your night going to looking at other people's scopes because they're like, "Come check this thing out," and you'll go
yeah.
over and you'll see some planetary nebula or something, and it's just a lot of fun, and you learn a lot too. So if you want to know about focal length, about aperture, about image exposure, if you're an imager, anything you want to learn, if you go to a star party, I guarantee you're going to learn. You're going to get like a month's worth of YouTube in a week. And that's the kind of the value there, at least for me.
Yeah, no doubt. You can't, replicate that anywhere else, like you said, Will, whether YouTube or anything else like that. I remember the first time I went to the Texas Star Party, got there late, so I couldn't set up my telescope or anything else like that. And I fumbled my way up to the middle field. There are three fields at TSP, the lower field, middle field, the upper field. And it's about a half a mile to the upper field from the parking area,
Uh,
Will?
Through the snow, uphill both
Yeah,
ways.
uphill. And I made my way up, I was around the middle field and I heard a familiar voice and I walk up to the guy and I'm like, "Hey, Mike, how's it going?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's good, man. What are you doing?" And I said, "No, I'm just trying to, make my way up to the upper field." And he's like, "Well, if you got a minute, come here, take a look." He had a 25-inch telescope. And first time I had a chance to look through, a telescope that large. And I mean, I spent the next hour there looking through the guy's telescope and
Yeah.
come to find out it wasn't the Mike I thought it was. It was some total random stranger who happened to be named Mike as well, who had a voice similar to, the Mike that I knew. But that's the way it is. Everybody's so friendly and so sharing with everything that they do there. It's like you could just walk up to a random stranger and spend the next hour looking through their telescope.
That's right. Yeah, and typically people are really chill about it, and you'll find the odd person there that will be working on something and maybe be a little bit focused, and
Yeah.
but you'll find that a lot of times those guys, when they're not really hardcore in it, they're even they will share views with you and stuff like that. Imagers, good luck talking to imagers. All they want to do is set up their computer and go take a nap, or I don't know what they do. I don't know
Have
what
some coffee or whatever it is that they do. Now, we joke around about imagers, right? You just have this
I'm an
kind of
image to do this.
yeah, yeah, exactly, right. But it's funny because you have the imaging camp and the visual observing camp,
Yeah.
and some people are starting to do a little bit of both. They'll set up their imaging rig, and then while they're capturing the data that they have there, they're doing visual observing. But for a lot of the folks that I know who do imaging, once they get everything set up, they'll walk around everybody else's telescopes and just kind of take a look at what they're looking at. So
Yeah.
I call that cheating, but it's okay. We love sharing what we're looking at.
Yeah, it's light leaching or something, right?
Light leaching, yeah.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. But like Lonnie says, I do have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel about these star parties. So after Artemis launches tonight, go watch some of those. It'll give you, like, especially if you're thinking about going to Okie-Tex or Texas Star Party or El Dorado or any of the ones that I've mentioned that we've been to. If you're thinking about going, watching those videos, taking the hour or 45 minutes or whatever it is to go watch those real quick will give you a little bit of, kind of what to expect. Of course, when you get there, everything's gonna look a little different because you're in the moment, right? You're there. So,
Right.
but that's why I actually make those videos, is to hopefully help somebody like me. Because when I was about to go to my first TSP, I was stoked because I'd heard about it since I was like 10 years old through Sky and Telescope magazine. And it
Right.
was 2014, and it was the end of 2013. We had signed up, we were going, and as it got closer, I was like getting super stoked or whatever. So I went on YouTube, right? That's what you
Yeah.
do. And I found multiple videos from back in the 80s, man, like old home movies of Texas Star Parties. And that was a big help for me, even if all it did was pump me up, right?
Yeah, and when you're going out to a star party for the first time, especially a big one like the Texas Star Party, it can be a little intimidating, right?
Sure.
So, the more information you can have, at least for me, this is the way I operate, the better I feel about what I'm doing. And man, those videos that you put together, Will, after each one of these things are just absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I mean, you really capture kind of the essence of the star party, what it's like to be there, what goes on, and all of these different things. So, yeah, if you've got a chance and you want to take a look at these things, go to Will's Deep Sky Dude YouTube page and take a look at some of those videos. And you pretty much do them for all of the star parties that you attend nowadays, right?
Yeah, I would be filming this stuff anyway, I guess, to try to remember it. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm making little home movies of these things wherever I go. And I used to do a more vlog kind of style. I've kind of gone away from that and gotten in more into the documentary style kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think eventually I'll go back to more of a vlogging kind of thing. But we'll see what happens with those. But for now, I mean, here we are at still 11:54. We're still at T-minus hold. Now the window doesn't open until 12:05, right, Joe?
That's
Is it
right. And
12:04?
look, if cheering with red and white pom poms is any indication, I'm hoping that that's a good sign, and they're going to be able to launch there because you've got an enthusiastic crowd there. But yeah, we've got a little bit of time before they're going to officially call it a scrub. So
Yeah, and Cecilia, we do have there is still time, there is still hope in this thing flying tonight. To recap for some of y'all that might just be joining us, there was a hydrogen leak early on in the evening. They actually sent a crew near a loaded rocket to go and tighten a bolt
yep.
in real time, and they sent that team in. That team did their job, got out, and the leak was fixed. Then there was and hydrogen leaks, by the way, is what we've been dealing with since the beginning of this launch. When we were out at Titusville waiting for this thing to go off last time, that's what
Yeah.
the problem was. Then there was an Ethernet cable issue at one of the radar sites, so they got that fixed. It looks like now, and they are just in a planned T-minus hold. I'm still refreshing the exploration ground system for NASA, and I'm still not seeing anything yet. So we're still waiting on word.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything come across either. Just taking a look at everything Artemis related. Yeah, I don't see anything different. So it looks like
That
we're
is a
we're
brave
still in
crew.
limp hold.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a brave crew, and like Spencer says, that is a risky maneuver. And I know that they would have probably had to have scrubbed because they were over. I think they can detect it's their threshold is 1% of
Hmm.
detection in this refill line. So basically, what happens is you fill this tank up with this really cold liquid, and it's really not even close to that temperature outside, right? It's like 70
Right.
degrees outside in Florida right now. And so this stuff boils off. It becomes a gas again, and they have to vent a lot of this stuff out to keep the rocket stable. So what you end up having to do is replenish. You put more fuel in as this stuff boils off, so that you can have a fuel. You need full tanks in your,
Right.
with your fuel. So that's what they were doing. They had, and on the hydrogen side, which is the bad stuff. If you have an oxygen leak, I guess it's less worse than a hydrogen leak,
Yeah.
because you don't want to light a cigarette near a hydrogen leak. That's for sure.
Pure oxygen certainly flammable, but hydrogen. I mean, we all remember seeing, the old images of the Hindenburg and everything else like that. Some of those old zeppelins that were filled with hydrogen. It's certainly not a fun thing to get around. Certainly not with flames or possibly electrostatic shock or anything else like that. I mean, that could set the entire system ablaze. So
Yeah, and we don't want to
yeah.
do that because we just waited all this time, you know, to make
So I'm
sure it
sure they
was.
had to wear a strap or something like that to ground themselves, make sure they don't
Man, I bet
accidentally
you.
set the thing on fire.
Can you imagine being those guys that you're going
Man,
into a hydrogen leak. You are
right?
walking into a hydrogen leak
Yes.
with, metal, like you said, you got static electricity and stuff going on.
Right.
Uh,
You don't want to take that balloon and rub it on your arm or anything like
no,
that.
no, 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 no. You don't want to do that. And look who it is, Mr. Travis Hunter in the chat,
Hey, Travis.
the one and only. Uh, Good man, Mr. Travis is. We can blame him for a lot of our. There it is. Joe
Hashtag
is
blame Travis.
Joe is quick at the draw with
There we
that.
go. We
There it
had that
is.
ready for you, Travis.
We were waiting for you, actually. And he says caught you live because I guess probably he works so much that he doesn't get to see us every time we live stream or whenever we're on or whatever. So
Yeah.
no rubber soled shoes. Yeah. Well, hey, I tell you what, I guarantee you they were wearing special shoes going in there
Oh, no
because
doubt.
yeah. Oh, we love you too, Travis. We're thinking about you out there doing what you do, and you're in my thoughts definitely, Travis, with what's going on, and we love you too, man, and we hope nothing but the best for you. And when next time I'm out in California, which needs to be sooner than later, we should hit up what is it, the Hollywood Universal, is it Universal out there, I think?
We have a Universal
Yeah,
Hollywood Studios. Yeah.
yeah, I know Travis likes to go out there and stuff. And But yeah, thank y'all for watching with us, and you're welcome, Cecilia, for the update. We're just kind of, hanging out. We're just like y'all. We're wanting to see this thing fly too. It's above our pay grade, though. Unfortunately, I think Joe or I, if we could probably pull the switch, we probably would do it. And a lot of people would
Just
probably be
go
mad.
for it anyway.
Yeah, just throw the switch and deal with we're gonna get fined maybe, or will we get jail time? I don't know.
I don't know. That's a couple $1 billion that's sitting right there on that launch pad. So yeah, we might
Yeah,
see some time in jail, maybe some pretty hefty fines, things like that. But I'm looking here. I'm just seeing the pause for Artemis 1 launch. I mean, it wasn't supposed to. It's midnight right now Central Time. The official launch, or what was stated earlier, was 12:04
yep.
a.m. So we're 4 minutes until that time. We're still in the 10-minute hold. So I'm not seeing any updates. So again, we've got some time here. With the launch window that was provided and everything else.
Yeah, Newcastle, Australia. What's up, Facebook user? Usually it's those privacy settings that delete your name, but at any rate, Newcastle in the house.
There you go.
Lonnie asks, is that flaring at the base of the launch pad? So that really deep red flare you saw in the, not this view that's above me, but another view a second ago, that I believe is a hydrogen burn off, and that thing is actually very, very far away from the pad itself. So I think it's maybe half a mile. It's a long way
Yeah,
from the launch pad itself. And I think mostly due to you just burn again, that hydrogen is boiling off. You can't keep it at those temperatures because we're talking like almost near absolute zero, right? It's like in the negative 400 degrees or something, which is almost at the lowest temperature you can go in this universe.
absolutely. You've got to keep it at that temperature to maintain the state that they need it in. Otherwise, like you said, it's just gonna boil off, or not really boil. It just it becomes a gas, right? And they're not
Yeah.
unable to use it at that point. So,
What's up, Travis Hogg? Welcome to the stream. We are
hey, Travis.
waiting for the rockets to go. Travis says, "Oh man, crazy stuff, right? Too busy trying to block all telescopes and ride shares and making EVAs, trying to ignore the whole Twitter stuff. Excited, I see this thing finally light. Well, let's hope so, Travis, because you know, we've been waiting a long time for this, and I drove to Florida for this, and I think I stayed like an extra day. Now that I think about it, I think we did stay an extra day, which was, we made the best of it. We went to the beach, right? Because the Atlantic Ocean happens to be right there, which is really cool. But also, we don't want any scrubs, right?
No scrubs.
No scrubs. A scrub is a launch that can't get no love from us. So, yeah. And TJ says, thank you guys for posting. It's an awesome moment in time to share with you guys. History is rolling out before us. That's right. And whether it flies or not, it's still history being made because here we are. We're doing the same thing again.
Yeah.
NASA knows what they're doing. They've been here before.
Yep.
And, I know it gets frustrating for a lot of us to, sit here and watch or go drive 18 hours to go and see it and spend hundreds of dollars on hotels and food and all this stuff to just not see it go. But trust me, there's a reason why if it's not going. And, we're still at that T-10, as you can see behind her there. And we're still hoping for something good, right? I think the window is open.
Yeah, the window's open. We've got, it's 12:04 Central Time now, 2-hour window. So if it doesn't happen, obviously, within the next 2 hours, 2:04 a.m. Central Time, 3:04 Eastern, then they would officially have to scrub this thing. They could always scrub it before then, right? Depending on what the situation is. But
Yeah,
we're going to keep our fingers crossed and hope that everything is a go and they're able to kind of get this thing up before long.
that's right. And I did see a tweet just come across at 12:02 a.m. We are now in replenish mode on upper stage for both liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, but we remain in a hold. So there's issues they're still looking at. They've got sensors and stuff with computers and like things. Travis says people take this stuff for granted because of us. This stuff is hard, and that's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. And they call it rocket science. That's a reason. That's a what is that, a cliche? I think. Trope.
It's just amazing to me that people can be disappointed that we're not launching a rocket that's gonna orbit the moon and whatnot on time. Right? Treat it like it's some flight from Dallas Fort Worth to Orlando or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just an amazing time. And look, I mean, NASA can be a victim of their own success at times, right? We've had so many good things happening at NASA. I mean, Will, you and I were here not too long ago for the Perseverance landing on Mars and talking about everything that had to go right in order for this thing to just touch down and be useful on the surface of Mars. And I mean, it's like to a T, everything that needed to happen happened. And we saw the same thing with the James Webb Space Telescope. And I forget how many sequenced events had to happen perfectly orchestrated. It was hundreds.
Yeah, it's
right?
300 something, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, they pulled it off successfully. And now we've got this wonderful scientific instrument that's, flying out there in space and giving us all this great data. So like I said, NASA can be a victim of their own success at times. And, when we've got a slight delay like this, people tend to get a little antsy. And look, James Webb Space Telescope was years behind, the original launch date, and well over budget and things like
Yeah.
that. Nobody's talking about that right now, right? Because of all the awesome stuff that we're seeing from James Webb.
Yeah, and on Twitter, if you're on what used to be awesome as Twitter, which is now very broken, but we're hoping that something where it gets better, maybe. You can
Hey,
follow. No, go ahead, Drew.
go ahead. That's like, hey, I'm going to get verified. What are you talking about?
Yeah, hey, for only $8, you too. But no, James Webb Space Telescope has a Twitter account that, well, I mean, they have a one for the telescope itself, but if you go to @JWST observations in real time, they tweet out what James Webb is pointed at or looking
Yeah.
at. And just earlier tonight, it's looking at NGC 253, which should ring a
Ah,
bell for every amateur astronomer who's been to some dark skies and used their telescopes, because that's the Sculptor galaxy.
that's right. It's
And
one of the objects we're looking at this year on the El Dorado list this year. Yeah,
that's right.
absolutely.
Yeah, and so they're taking a look at that with the James Webb. I think earlier in the week, maybe, or maybe around on Monday or so, they were looking at Io. And while we were at El Dorado, they were looking at Fomalhaut, which is a star, a fairly close star, which is really cool. So we should be getting images for some of that stuff soon. Although some of it is, it's going to be a while before that data is published. So you kind of have to
Yeah.
look at what's on there. But what's up, Terry? Good to see you. Terry says, I watched the JWST progress for almost 20 years. Most satisfying launch ever. Man, I couldn't agree more with that.
No, same here. I remember we were on the way back to Houston from Salt Lake City. We'd gone skiing, and that morning, it's like I wanted to get to the airport as early as I possibly could, just to sit there and watch the launch. I know, like everybody else, man, we were there with, just holding our breath, making sure that everything went off the way it was supposed to. I mean, there's so much time, effort, money, blood, sweat, tears, everything that was poured into that program, and we said, fortunately, everything went off without a hitch. And again, testament to NASA and the folks that worked on that project, because it is just an amazing thing to see what's coming out of it.
Absolutely, man. And it's just the beginning too. Hubble is still releasing amazing data
Yeah,
and doing all of the stuff that it was set out to do still to this day. And yes, that was with resurface missions, of course, and things like that. And I think there's even some talk of some more resurfacing missions in the future with some
absolutely.
stuff, which will be fantastic, man. If we can extend the life of this telescope, why wouldn't you, right? It's already out there. You don't have to try to
Exactly.
launch it again. So,
Well, they're completely different things, right? I think a lot of people now are looking past Hubble, and obviously James Webb is the sexy new thing that everybody wants to talk about, but they are really two different instruments that serve two different purposes, right? James Webb Space Telescope is really kind of focused on the infrared portion of the spectrum, and Hubble has some near infrared instruments and whatnot, but really is kind of focused a lot on the visual side of things. So,
yeah.
being able to take data from both of those is just invaluable. So,
Absolutely. And Travis comes in with a question. What do you both want to see from James Webb? Like one thing you want to see this lifetime? That's a
oh
deep
man,
question there.
yeah, it really is, man. Geez. When I first heard that they could detect the chemical composition of an exoplanet's atmosphere, I thought that that's it. I mean, that would be a game changer, right? If we could find an Earth-like planet that has an Earth-like atmosphere orbiting a star somewhere else, I mean, I'd love to see that. That's the thing that I would love to see from the James Webb Space Telescope more than anything else.
Yeah, and I was really looking forward to those deep field images, which of course they delivered on right out the box.
Oh yeah,
Which is really cool. But one of the main things that I'm really interested to see is the protoplanetary disks and research done around those, which is basically stars that have just formed, and
yeah,
now the planets around that star are forming. To me, that is fascinating, and that's something that really you can only do with Webb, because we've already reached the limit of things like the Hubble and some other systems. that, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel, as it were. And Webb deepened that barrel a lot more. So it'll be a while before we're scraping the edge of that. And that's one of the coolest things, I think, is that the shelf life of this thing, the future proofing, is definitely, especially where you're at L1, you're not coming back, and there's no rescue mission for you out there. And in fact, I
No, there
think,
certainly isn't. Yeah.
yeah, Webb has been hit like 5 times by objects, by little
Right.
micrometeoroids and things. So at any moment we could lose it. But I can tell y'all that watching that account, there is almost never a time where it is dormant. Sometimes it's taking darks, which is hilarious because we do that as astrophotographers. You take your main subs images, your lights, if you will, and then you take the same exposure with the lens cap on, and that's
Yep.
your darks. And they can do that with Webb. And so you'll see it. It'll say taking a 30-minute image of none.
Yeah.
And that's taking darks, which I think is fascinating. And so you can see the parallels there, but there's a lot more coming from James Webb. I mean, it is just a brand new egg that hasn't even really began to hatch yet.
No doubt. And, you kind of mentioned the Twitter account for the James Webb Space Telescope. Hubble has one as well, where it'll tell you what they're pointed at, what it's looking at, and what they're capturing data on. And, if you've got a chance, if you're on Twitter, give both of those accounts a follow, because you'll see some pretty interesting things coming out of that.
And it's cool to keep up with what your tax dollars are doing. I know
Yeah.
Joe and I both pay taxes, and
Yep.
we funded that James Webb Telescope along with a lot of other people around the world, of course. Maybe some of you good people in here. But you know what the deal is. That's a telescope for all humanity.
It is.
And I mean, look, they had to invent, I think it was 12 new technologies to make this thing work.
Right.
So that basically that's like 12 miracles they have to pull off.
And get them again in the right sequence, right? For a lot
Yeah,
of this stuff to
like
happen.
12
But
days of Christmas for miracles, sort of, but they did it. And that
yeah.
thing's flying and taking data, which is unbelievable. John Mather, the guy who was project lead on that, is absolute genius, did a great job pulling everything off. Hundreds of people behind the scenes working on Webb. It's just a fantastic project. You can see here kind of the orbit they're talking about, which is fascinating to kind of get a glimpse into that.
There you see the ICPS separation. At that point, they'll make their way towards the moon itself, get into a lunar orbit. And then again, it's pretty variable in terms of the length of this particular mission, right? I mean, you're seeing a several day difference in the low end and high end for the estimates there. But again, this is the most powerful rocket ever built, right? It is meant to get us back there. We haven't been able to get back to the moon since the old Saturn V rocket was able to get mankind there. So pretty exciting.
Good friend of mine, Charlie Golden, in the house playing observatory. He's like, man, I got to get up. This is ridiculous. Of course, couldn't be on time.
Yeah, no way. Yeah, it just wouldn't be a launch.
Why would it be on time?
Exactly.
Boeing is involved. What are you talking about?
There you go.
Travis says, I know I'm asking a lot, but telescopes. I don't know telescopes. Joe knows a little bit about telescopes, but are we at the limit of technology with the James Webb? Oh no. Do you think you think we can still push past? Yes, I think we can, Travis, but I'm not sure really how. I know that if you wanted to build another Webb, you just build the same sort of thing bigger. That's going to give you a little bit more something. And by the time you're going to do that, the instruments are going to be infinitely more sensitive. Well, not infinitely, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
A lot more sensitive. So yeah, I think because we've pushed ourselves as a society, as a species this far, yeah, I think there is definitely another. We'll be able to, if we do the thing, the Starshade mission, we'll be able to see other planets optically. The Starshade mission would be an incredibly ambitious telescope. But if it worked, and it would, if they were able to pull it off, we would be able to see optically other planets around other stars.
Yeah, which is just absolutely crazy. right? And
Yeah.
that's why, when it comes to the space telescopes, like you said, we're just barely scratching the surface. People think that space telescopes began with Hubble. We've had several space telescopes up there. Spitzer was kind of the infrared predecessor to James Webb.
Oh
You
yeah.
had the Chandra X-ray Observatory, things like that. So we've had a lot of these, these telescopes up there. Many of them looking in different wavelengths um, of the light spectrum out there, but we're just scratching the surface. And the amazing thing is, those are just the space telescopes. I mean, we're building some Earth-based telescopes now. I say we, not me, not
We're
Will and
not
I.
there turning wrenches like,
Got to loose bolt. Um,
yeah, loose
but
bolt, hydrogen, something or other.
But you look at like the Giant Magellan Telescope or the Vera Rubin Observatory, the 30-meter telescope, things like that. Just massive, massive telescopes, and the technology that they're using to help compensate for the Earth's atmosphere is just amazing, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the trade-off, right? So you have Earth-based telescopes, and the benefit with Earth-based telescopes is you could build these huge mirrors or these mirror segments that you put together in terms of a larger mirror that have so much light gathering capabilities. But at the end of the day, you're still kind of beholden to the environmental conditions here on Earth, the atmosphere, everything else like that. On the other hand, you have these space telescopes. So you're getting away from all of these issues that the Earth's atmosphere can create,
Mhm.
but you can only put so much into space at one time, right? So you're kind of limited from a cargo size perspective as far as how big a space telescope can be, unless you were building this thing out in space, essentially, right? So those are kind of the trade-offs. But man, I've talked to people who are working on those Earth-based telescope projects like the Giant Magellan Telescope and the Vera Rubin. I mean, the stuff they're doing there is just absolutely incredible. I mean, the amount of data that they're going to collect more data than they can actually process, which is kind of a sad thing, right? Because they're going to have to end up getting rid of some of the data because, the storage requirements and things like that.
Yeah.
Who knows what we, we might be throwing away, right? But man, I'm telling you, I think we're just scratching the surface here when it comes to certainly space-based telescopes.
Yeah, and the future is, imagine when people put up the Hubble, imagine being that one guy in the crowd that's like, it doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
that tweet is not going to age well.
Yeah, exactly.
So I always say just err on the side of we're going to keep going down crazy roads as a species, right?
Yeah. No, I
Um,
mean that's the thing. As long as there's a scientific curiosity and that itch that
yeah,
needs to be scratched, then hopefully, right? Fingers crossed, we'll keep getting bigger and better.
yeah, we are a a hunter gathering species. We like to go find out new things and explore new
Absolutely.
territories. And that's what we've done since the beginning of time as a
Yeah.
species. So why would we stop now, right?
Yep. And you think about it, right? I mean, people look at the cost of this particular mission. I can't remember what they said the this rocket was $2 billion, if I'm not mistaken, as part of the overall $2 billion.
Oh, billion.
Um, and it's a lot of money, right? I mean, as Will said, we're all taxpayers here, most of us are, and it's one of these things where you look at that and it's like, man, could that money be better spent elsewhere, right? We still have a lot of issues, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you looked at it, we're wasting a lot of money elsewhere. Right?
Well, and yeah, and that argument can be made, Joe. And the thing that I love about it is that time over time has proved
Yeah.
the technology that NASA invents
Yes.
for all these missions, whether it's ISS, whether it's Apollo, shuttle, all those technologies do trickle down to us. Um,
Absolutely.
and at a time limit when they're not proprietary anymore, we get them. Why do you think
Yeah.
we have GPS? Like, right, you tell people all these things that NASA has done for us over the years and other space agencies as well. But I
Right.
mean, CCD imager, the GPS, stuff like MRIs. If you're
Right.
wondering what NASA has done for us, what your tax dollars have been doing for us, I think there's a website like whatnasadoes.com or something, like what has NASA done or something like that.
Yeah.
You just click through it and it never ends. And it's just like another, like, and you're like, wow, I didn't know they invented that. It was like some kind of mattress technology or something, right? So, um,
Yeah. There's no doubt, right? I mean, it's one of these things where the investment that we make into NASA has a multifold return on that investment, right? I mean, so many discoveries, so many technological advances, and everything else. Like you said, eventually makes its way into the private sector, and others are able to kind of create new industries and profit off of it, create new jobs, create new things that make their way into our hands and make a better life for us. So no doubt about that, man.
Yeah, and who knows what some of those technologies that we invented for web. Again, we say we. It's not like Joe
Right.
and I are there doing the
The
math
the
on.
royal we, right?
Yeah, the royal we. Those technologies will better our lives in the next decade. I can promise you that. I
No
don't know
doubt.
how. I don't know in what way, but it always has a tendency to trickle down to us from, the space industry.
Yeah.
We will always benefit from that. When we entered the space age as a species, everything changed on our planet. The way we got information changed. What our goals were as a species changed. And while we might not all be on the same page or in one accord with that, uh,
Right.
at least there is that desire to explore space still, which I think is amazing. And this has been a very big expenditure. I think I think it's worth it.
No, no, I agree with you, right? Obviously, being two people who are keenly interested in space, astronomy, and everything else there, I think it would be a shock if we said otherwise,
Yeah,
right? But
answer everything.
but no, no, again, when you look at how much money we waste, I say waste, right? I should say spend in other places.
Mhm.
This is just a fraction of the budget of the United States and what we spend on. And again, it is one of those things where a dollar spent is $10 in return or whatever that number is. I mean, you're getting a multifold increase on that return that comes back into U.S. coffers. So no doubt, I think this is absolutely worth it.
Yeah, and also it satisfies that urge that we have as a species to go see what's over that hill.
Yeah,
That's what we've been doing, like we said, since the dawn of time. And the next hill that is, right over yonder is the moon.
yeah,
There's really no other viable place to go right now. You might say, oh, well, Mars is a viable place to go. I know that some people say they want to go to Mars, but Mars is going to be incredibly hard. I think Mars is 30 years away, at least, even for NASA. It's going to be a long, long walk to Mars.
yeah. No,
That's why we're going
you're
to the moon. I think it's just better. It's closer.
yeah, and look, it's if we're able to build a sustainable lunar base, right? Which is part of what Artemis wants to do. We want to build a lunar base on the south pole of the moon. We want to see if we can get water there at the South Pole. We want to see if we can build a habitable base over a period of time. The reality is, all things being equal, if you could launch a rocket from the moon versus launching one from the Earth,
Mhm.
because of the gravitational differences and everything else, it's going to be a lot easier to
Oh yeah.
get out of the gravitational influence of the moon than it is Earth, right? And so, the moon is certainly a springboard to Mars. But I agree with you, Will. I think it's going to be a lot longer than people estimate in terms of us getting to Mars, right? It's one of these things where the launch windows are so precise because of when Earth and Mars align and when you have to launch.
Yeah.
That launch window is so narrow that if you miss it, you've got to wait several months. Yeah, I say almost 2 years basically before you can do it again, right? So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where if things don't go right, you've got to scrub and you wait and wait and wait. So
And if you have
uh,
a crew on Mars that needs something, I think we've all watched The Martian.
yeah,
I think we can all. It's basically a documentary at this point for what can go
yeah,
on Mars. That poor character, but that guy, the guy that wrote that book, did a lot of research on what NASA is up against for
yeah,
Mars. And I think he nailed it on a lot of things. I think there was a little bit of that. It's called science fiction for a reason because you can kind
right,
of go off
right,
into woo land, which is fun.
yeah,
But it was a great movie, and I feel like that's it, that's what they're gonna face on the surface of Mars. Ultimately, the mission here with this rocket is to go to Mars, but for
Mhm.
now, the moon is kind of that next stepping
That's
stone
right.
in the ocean. It's the sandbar out there that you can go out and set up a little something on so that you can, like Joe said, get away from that sandbar a little bit easier, right? Than trying to launch a boat at the waves of the crashing shore. You're a little bit further out. You need less fuel, and I think they're sending up. I heard that NASA's sending a little probe soon that's going to
Mhm.
be basically doing a pathfinding mission for an orbit around the moon. They're going to be testing a certain orbit to see if that's a good place for Gateway, which will be the ISS, or the space
Right.
station around the moon, which will be
Around
cool.
the moon.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we didn't really talk about Gateway too much, but again, there's so many components to the overall Artemis mission, right? We talked about the base at the South Pole. We just mentioned, this ISS, essentially this orbiting space station around the moon and things like that. And again, these are things that are part of that stepping stone to getting to Mars. So if we can demonstrate this and we can do this, kind of build that capability, that platform on the moon, then yeah, they'll give it a go to Mars. So this is absolutely critical. Getting to the moon, getting a human back to the moon is just that first step in being able to get to Mars again.
Yeah, and it looks like, is this Space Center Houston?
It looks like Space Center Houston there.
Oh, it
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
absolutely.
look at that.
Yep.
Oh, and then it's gone. Oh, now we're in, where are we?
U.S.
U.S.
Space and Rocket Center.
I don't know. I don't know where that is. That Huntsville,
I I
maybe?
I thought it might be Huntsville, but I'll have to take a look at that.
Huh. Well, I mean, it's somewhere. They definitely have a Saturn V rocket in a building, which is cool. We have one of those here in Houston. If you've never been to Johnson Space Center, that's a definite must.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. And that is Huntsville, by the way. I just looked it up. So
okay, Huntsville. Yeah, they have a big role in all this. Let's be real. They're building stuff. Oh, there's Airbus in Germany.
yeah, people are standing. Look, you'll
Why are
never
they
see.
standing? Yeah, what's going
You
on?
know, you see some German folks like that enthusiastic. It's something good is happening, or you might be scared. But
Yeah,
I'm just
and if
joking.
they're that enthusiastic without the beer, then what are they doing?
That's it. So again, ESA, the European Space Agency, playing a big role in some of the some of the components here, some of the things that are going into the Artemis mission itself. So that's why you're seeing those images from Germany itself.
To our German friends over there, we hope that this launches so you get to see it too.
Yeah, still holding at 10 minutes though. You see
That's what
that
it
on the
looks like.
clock behind this gentleman on the screen.
He is the Chris Collinsworth of rocket launches.
There you go.
Al
Speaking of which,
Michaels.
didn't you have a run in recently with a famous announcer?
Well, I was walking through the hotel lobby of the Four Seasons, and Al Michaels happened to walk by me. And I know I was that weird guy that when they see someone famous, they're like, wait, I know, who are you? Wait. And I all I could muster was like, hey man, how you doing? And he was just kind of like, hey, how's it going? Just kind of walked past me. And I was like, I thought his name was Mike, or I couldn't remember exactly what his name was. And then I was like, no, man, that was Al Michaels. I was like, man, I could have been like, "Ah, what's up, dude?" But he would have been like, I don't care who you are or why you're talking to me.
There
Uh,
you go.
we are still holding Lyra. There's always a planned hold at T-10, or yeah, T-10.
Yeah.
Um, and we're still at a hold. They do have the hydrogen leak fixed from what we're seeing. They do have the Ethernet connector problem fixed, which is always fun. Living in the digital age, you can't go without Wi-Fi. So they jiggled the cord, and we're
They
good to
jiggled the
go.
cord.
And it looks like, I mean, and we got a report earlier that all the tanks in the core stage, the upper stage, everything is topped off and ready to go. This
Awesome.
rocket is exactly ready to pull the trigger, but they're still working on something. Our buddy Travis here says people who say SLS is a waste of is a waste. Don't realize what it takes to go through this. SLS is greater than Twitter all day, every day. No, you got that right. SLS. And, people do talk a lot of trash about SLS and that it was a waste of money. And
Yeah.
I guess maybe I can kind of see how some of those arguments might arise here and there. But overall, if you go back into history, there were people who probably complained about the Apollo rocket too.
Oh,
And
they did.
if I was going to look back on, like, tell my grandchildren, yeah, well, back in the day, I complained about Apollo. That doesn't
Right.
sound, who cares what you
Yeah.
thought about Apollo, just go with it. Right. And, but Travis, he knows the deal. Travis knows how hard this stuff really is. Lyra says, well, I bet the energy and excitement in Titusville is high right now. That's for sure. We
Oh,
had a
no
lot of
doubt.
fun down at Rotary Park. There was, I think there was 700 people packed into this little park we were in. It felt like, anyway, it was probably more like 200, but it was a wild night. Let me tell you. Hashtag blame Travis. Absolutely. Come on, T minus 1 minute. I don't know. We're still 10 minutes away from that, right, Joe?
Yeah. And I'm looking at NASA Exploration Ground Systems now. Okay, so no updates. Yeah, the
Yeah,
last update was 29 minutes ago, so about a half hour ago.
they had to spray some deoxit on the RJ-45 to keep it. Tony Bendel says a few minutes away from polling right now. Polling. Are we? Is there another election going on?
No hanging chads, right?
No dangling chads.
There you
No
go.
superficial Karens, which will be funny.
Okay, I'm seeing this. NASA just reported they have only a few minutes left of work prior to polling to see if each system is ready to go. So that's what the polling is.
Okay. So they're going to vote on whether or not SLS should become president of the sky.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Tony Bendel knew what he was. He's already at the polls. Tony Bendel is our live reporter at the polls.
On scene, Tony.
On scene, Tony. How you doing tonight, Tony? I wish we could bring Tony in like that. That'd be pretty awesome.
That would be awesome. That would be
Tony
absolutely
Bendel
awesome.
Broadcasting from the bottom of the rocket. I'm standing under the RS-25.
Under it. Yeah, holding his ear like this, like he's in a hurricane situation.
There's a lot of wind here for some reason. Oh, you made our night, Travis. That's awesome.
Oh, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. Lyra says we'd all kill to watch Apollo again. Man, I would love that. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I mean, I could only, I talked to people who were there. They were either kids or young adults or whatever when they watched that program. And I've talked to people who actually worked on the mission itself, right?
Yeah.
One of the benefits of living here in the Houston area is you get to actually talk to people who were a part of that, and I could only imagine what it was like to see man land on the moon for the first time and just the excitement. I mean, you talk about something that brought the entire world together at that point, right? And I couldn't imagine even people involved in the Soviet space program who were competing fiercely against America at that time couldn't, just take some pride in knowing that, hey, this really happened. We did this as a species, right? This transcended any kind of human division or anything else like that.
Yeah, and it was funny. I was watching the Charles Lindbergh flight the other night. I got curious about, like, how did this happen? It just started bothering me. So of course I had to go find out about it. And it really did unite, like you said, it united the whole world. People in France heard he might be coming. So they gathered at the airfield, and it was pandemonium when he got there. They were tearing at his clothes. They were carrying him. They were throwing him around, beating him with sticks. No, not really. That last part's they were excited he was there, and it's incredible thing. And we're with you, Charlie. We want to see this thing fly. LOL. I think it's because on Facebook my profile pic looks like it fits under your boxes. Yeah, that's where it goes. Thought it was a person. Who was a person? Which one?
Person. Yeah.
No, that was probably we've been just blabbing on for forever.
Just riffing here. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, on your ninth, Desmond says on his 9th birthday or their birthday, Apollo 11 landed on the moon on his birthday. Wow, happy
Awesome.
birthday.
Yeah, there you go.
Was that
It's a hell of
July?
a birthday present, right?
What was that? July something 1969. So now we know exactly how old you are, Desmond. That's true. That's a pretty awesome birthday present. Now
That
this is
is.
actually if y'all know this room, this is the room where they launched Jodie Foster into another star system from this room right here. It's a very historic room, Joe.
There you go. Yeah, no, I mean, you can't deny the history of this room right here, right?
That's right.
Our
Yeah.
first interstellar travel
Yeah,
from this room right there. Yeah.
that's right. In Interstellar, they built rockets on the bottom of this room and shot it into space, I think. I don't know. Launch is a go, Tony says. Well, you know what?
Nice.
And Tony would be the guy that knows this because Tony knows people. He's like, I know people.
He's like the connected mob guy,
That's
but from a
right.
space perspective, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
just saw it. Sophia Gadnesar said Artemis is go for launch. Awesome. I'm seeing
Well,
it coming in. Yeah, lots of people saying it's go for launch. There
I'm
you
both
go.
happy that they're going to do this and sad that I can't be there, but we're here together as a group of people watching this. So that's cool. And like you
That
said
is,
earlier,
yeah.
Joe, you and I have done live streams over the top of some really cool and historic moments. And for those of
Yeah,
y'all watching with us, we really appreciate that. Thank y'all for hanging out with us because, we're just like y'all. We're just a bunch of space enthusiasts that love to watch this stuff. So y'all hanging out with us here is pretty awesome. So we really appreciate that. Today is my 47th birthday, Terry says, and I really want an Artemis launch. Make it happen, Will. Well, happy birthday, Terry. That's all I can make happen right there. Is
pull those
make
strings, Will. You got to pull those
yeah,
strings. Make this thing. I think you did, right? I mean, you
Tony.
made a phone call.
Yeah,
Yeah,
get Tony on the phone here.
you said
Uh,
let's get this let's get this thing going. Let's get this show on the road.
but yeah,
And they
happy
responded. So
and
they're
they
go
did.
for
Yeah,
launch.
they were immediately like, "Well, we have to do what Deep Sky Dude says." So, you know,
Yeah.
it looks like they just put a T minus 36 minutes on the
Oh,
board.
look at that.
Oh, there we go.
9:47. So they've started the clock from the
Whichever way it
T
is.
minus 10-minute hold that they had, and it looks like
Woo!
we are advancing. This is
Oh, here
awesome,
we
guys.
go.
This is awesome.
And what Travis says here is exactly true. Every advance in space is amazing, no matter who's doing it. 100% agree. Except
No
for if
doubt.
it's maybe like Coca-Cola trying to paint the sky with a Coke logo, then I'm like, um, be a fanboy of the advance in text, not the company. Amen, brother. Side
Yeah,
note,
no
I've
doubt.
been in those rooms. Chills when you go in there. That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And happy birthday to Terry.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
from Travis. Thanks for that that note there, Travis.
That was awesome. They're going to launch because we're not there. Lyra says, of course, every launch I've ever planned to go to has not happened. Sorry, space nerds. It was my fault. You shouldn't really apologize to them. You should be apologizing to me, who you've
There you
inconvenienced.
go.
Uh, Tim says, where is the NASA boss? Is Bill alive? I'm not sure who you mean there. Bill Nye the Science Guy? I don't know. 10 minutes and counting. Actually, we're 8.5 minutes there. Ooh, it's getting real, y'all.
Yeah, they're talking about Bill Nelson.
Oh,
I
Bill.
have
Yeah.
not I have not seen Bill in quite some time myself. I saw him in some stock video that they're
Yeah.
using for Artemis. But yeah, I'm with you. Really haven't seen him much at all lately.
Do we need to file a missing persons report? Is what I'm
There
hearing.
we go. There we go.
Maybe.
And Don, you know what? We wish you were here with us on the live stream. Miss you. Haven't seen you in quite some time. So looking forward to seeing you at El Dorado next year, or if not before that, maybe at the Texas Star Party.
Absolutely. Now, when the launch goes, Joe, I think we're going to probably put this up on the main screen, turn the sound on,
That's it.
and we're going to watch with y'all in utter amazement. So get your drink now. Get your beverage
Yeah.
ready, whether it's water. I promise it's pure water, not vodka. Get whatever you're ready. Get whatever libation you're ready to do when this thing goes, because it looks like we are going to launch. We have less than 7 or almost 7 minutes.
Less than having 7.5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's closer than we've ever been.
Man, I don't know about you. I mean, this kind of happened when we were watching the Perseverance landing, right? It's like your heart rate gets going a little bit more. It's like there's so much anticipation for this thing. I can
Yeah.
only imagine seeing this thing in person and what that would really be like. But again, even being on here, live streaming it, watching it on YouTube, essentially is getting my heart rate going. So I'm hoping that's doing the same thing for everybody else out there, because this is, again, is a historic moment.
Absolutely. And hey, Bavis. Uh, uh, Rocket looks funny. Mike Forward says, "Good luck, Artemis." We agree with you, Mike. We are in full agreement there. There's some nice shots of this thing. I promise you wouldn't want to be standing right where this camera is. You would pass away as soon as the rocket turned on. As soon as those RS-25s lit, you'd probably be deaf, blind, and everything else. And then when the SRBs, those big white tubes on the side, the solid rocket boosters, when those kicked on, your insides would become liquid, and you
exactly. You just
would be no more.
liquefy. Yep. And I think he made the Beavis and Butthead reference, because there is a Snoopy doll that is going to be that is actually there in the Orion capsule that is going to be launched as part of Artemis I.
That's right. And they even built like a correct spacesuit for the thing, which I thought
exactly
was man hours putting a spacesuit on a doll. Okay.
Okay. Now, when we're talking about waste, right? You might have a case there, right? But nah, that's pretty awesome.
They gave him a little backpack. I don't know. But what a way to go. That's
right.
right.
No doubt. There's certainly
like,
worse ways, right? Yeah.
It would be like Dr. Strangelove. Instead of riding the nuke down, you just be
just lassoing this thing. Yeah.
Cremation time. If they could find anything of you, I bet. I mean, I don't know. The birds might pick you off out there. Oh, Wendy says,
Wendy.
Yeah, Tom and I are watching you from Houston. HAS.
Glad Wendy and Thomas could join us tonight. Thanks for jumping on.
Joe and I, actually, in a weird coincidence, Joe and I happen to be HAS members too, which is
we are. That's that. HAS being the Houston Astronomical Society. Yeah, we absolutely are. And we're also members of the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas, ASCET.
That's right. I forgot that we are both members of that club as well.
Yeah, you see a lot of cross members there. Members that are parts of both clubs there. So
cross-contamination, as we like to call it.
Cross-contamination, which, again, one of those things that makes these star parties fun is you run across people that are members of the club you've known, you probably haven't seen in a while, but it's always fun to see those folks. And then you meet other people. Like I think this was the first time I had a chance to meet Spencer at this most recent ESP. So
yeah. And Spencer's a longtime observer with our club, been around for many, many years. I've been, 2010s or so. I think I met Spencer 2011 or somewhere. So it's, longtime member of our club over here, and just great. It's, if you're not in an astronomy club, I'll use this last couple of minutes before this thing launches. Go to an astronomy club, man, because it will definitely revolutionize your observing, your astronomy, your knowledge of astronomy, your knowledge of photography, all that. It's going to help you because you'll be talking to people like Joe and I and others here in the chat, like Lonnie and some of the others, Don Davies, and you're going to learn because these people are educated and experienced in astronomy, and it's going to benefit you, I promise.
Oh, no doubt. You've got people, and then I look at Don, right? I mean, the people who are doing this in a either a professional capacity or in a kind of semi-professional capacity. You learn so much from them. Somebody asked me the other day, new member to our club, if I were to buy one thing, what would you recommend? And it's like, you already bought it. It's membership to the club. And it doesn't matter which club it is. Just find an astronomy club, join, and just get to know people, ask questions, find out what they know, ask questions about the tool, before you ever go out and spend money on a telescope. If you're not sure about what you want to buy, ask. A lot of these clubs have loaner programs where you could borrow a telescope and try it out and see what works and what doesn't. I've known people who bought telescopes and then immediately find out, hey, this thing won't fit in my car. So it's a good way to ask people, try things out, and like I said, there are lots of great books out there, lots of great telescopes, eyepieces. The best money you could spend if you're just getting into this is money on that membership with an astronomy club.
Here we go. We've got ventral venting. That's they're gimbaling the motors.
There you go. You see that?
You rock too, Travis. We appreciate you. I'm going to take us off.
No doubt.
We're going to stay talking here. Don says there are a few passionate and willing to share their knowledge as amateur astronomers. That's 100% true.
No doubt. You know, the great thing is, I know we're just under 2 minutes here, but even the professional astronomers, there's such a great camaraderie and a bond between the professional astronomical community and the amateur astronomical community. You know, there's a lot of work that the amateurs do to help the professionals and vice versa. And that's why, I mean, we get professional astronomers to come talk to us all the time, and they're more than happy to, because, you know, it is just one of these things where for some reason in astronomy, everybody wants to share. So, all right, man, we're under a minute and a half.
Should I bring in the audio, and
Let's
should we just we'll keep our commentary going here and there, but what I'm going to do is going to move it over here.
If we have a hold,
how's that audio, Joe?
Cycle back to T-minus 10
good.
minutes.
You might
those batteries.
Pull it up a little bit more.
Okay.
The count continues. A note now.
How's that?
Shortly after liftoff.
Good. It's pretty loud, yeah, but that's good.
1 minute.
Shortly after liftoff,
there we go.
Mission Control Houston will take control of the rocket, and my colleague, Leah Cheshire, will take over commentary. T-minus 50 seconds and counting.
We're under a minute, man.
T-minus 33 seconds. The GLS will hand off control to the ALS. This is the autonomous launch sequencer. On board the rocket, it will take over command and control of the rocket. But the ALS will check, make sure there's no holds coming from the ground up until T-minus 2 seconds.
Go for ALS.
And we are go for ALS.
Here we go, 30 seconds.
The space is now counting down to liftoff of Orion on its maiden voyage to the moon. Launch team can no longer cycle the count. Sound suppressor water now flowing under the ML. And here we go.
Here we go. Magnesium.
Hydrogen burn-off igniters initiated. 7, 6, 5. 4-stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. Boosters in ignition. And liftoff.
Look at that.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
Oh, man.
What a beautiful launch there. At least the first part of it.
All 4 RS-25 engines on the core stage and 2 solid rocket boosters now propelling the vehicle at 128 miles per hour. Hearing good control on the roll from teams in Mission Control Houston. All good calls so far. Now 30 seconds into the flight of Artemis I. First milestone will be for the vehicle to pass through max Q at about 1 minute and 9 seconds into launch. This is the greatest period of atmospheric force on the rocket.
Man, look at that. Those solid rocket boosters each produce about 3.6 million pounds of thrust.
107 miles per hour. You're looking at 8.8 million pounds of maximum thrust. Quiet here in the loops in Mission Control.
There's that sound.
The 4 core stage engines are throttling down ahead of passing through max Q. Now 1 minute, 21 seconds into the flight, traveling at 1,420 miles per hour.
Jeez.
The 4 core stage engines are back at maximum thrust. The next major milestone will be for the solid rocket boosters to cut off and jettison at about 2 minutes and 11 seconds into the flight, so about 30 seconds from now. Again, quiet here in Mission Control Houston as teams continue monitoring the flight of Artemis I.
There she goes.
We're now 16 miles downrange from the launch pad at Kennedy Space Center, traveling over 2,800 miles per hour.
Welcome to the stream, John.
Standing by for solid rocket booster jettison and shortly thereafter.
There they go.
Confirmation that the solid rocket boosters have separated these 177-foot boosters.
You see the 4
now
engines there?
Now the core stage continues to the flight of Orion, all 4 RS-25 engines firing, traveling over 3,400 miles per hour, 46 miles downrange.
Look at that.
2 minutes and 36 seconds into the flight. Hearing nominal calls here in Mission Control Houston. We've still got 4 good engines on the core stage. Next up, we'll be looking for the service module fairing to separate. This is 3 15 by 15 foot fairing panels, providing structural support, protecting the service module. Those will separate at about 3 minutes and 11 seconds into flight, and very shortly thereafter will be followed by the launch abort system separation.
That's why I wore my 311 shirt tonight, everybody. Thank you.
Just over 3 minutes into the flight of Artemis I, now traveling over 4,060 miles per hour, 83 miles downrange.
I agree, Travis.
We just had confirmation that the service module fairing has separated.
Yeah, this is rolling really well, John. That's right.
And that the launch abort system pyros have fired, separating those from Orion as well.
Tower
For
jet's
future
gone.
crew members.
Oh.
I think
Mike
they
got a little
lost
squeaky.
the Ethernet cable for that microphone there.
Is that the moon with Artemis going by it? Look at that.
We just heard
Oh, man.
press, meaning if SLS were to lose an engine
Well-
at this point in the mission, we could still achieve a nominal mission. We would just have an extended main engine cutoff time. However, we still have 4 good engines, all at maximum thrust right now, powering the first flight of Artemis at 5,200 miles per hour, 148 miles downrange.
Somebody's going to have an awesome image of the moon with the Artemis rocket going.
Yeah.
I
Oh, my
guarantee you.
gosh.
They were a little north of Titusville and probably got an amazing shot right there.
No doubt. That's got to be an iconic image, if ever. Obviously, they've switched
4
over
minutes
to
and
the
16
computer-generated
seconds into the
images
flight of
there.
Artemis 1. So far, we've
Yeah,
had
this is not
a
an
clean
actual
ascent.
camera shot.
It's not an actual image.
That's been about 2 minutes and 11 seconds after liftoff.
That's that
Shortly
NASA
after, we
fakery.
have the service module panels, fairings separate, as well as the launch abort system. The launch abort system was inert for this flight, except to perform this separation.
And again, those
Hey.
four
Those
engines.
4-stage engines will continue to fire and power the flight of Artemis I, now traveling over 6,800 miles per hour, 229 miles downrange.
I was going to say those 4 engines reused from the shuttle program. So
Engines are looking
That's
good.
right. And you were saying one earlier took John Glenn. One of them took our friend Don Pettit, who we've both met and
Yeah.
Our
on a
core
shuttle
stage
mission.
main engine cutoff time is about 8 minutes and 3 seconds. We are now 5 minutes and 11 seconds into the flight, 7,656 miles per hour.
I was actually able to be at Michoud assembly
Again,
facility.
4
See this
good
exact
core
rocket.
stage
So this is
engines,
awesome.
those 4
Nice.
RS-25 engines. The last time those core stage engines flew, they were taking space shuttles to orbit, and now with upgraded capabilities, they're launching the future of human spaceflight.
That's right. Roger that, over.
5 minutes, 42 seconds into the mission, we are now traveling 8,800 miles per hour, 345 miles downrange from the launch pad at Kennedy Space Center.
Man, it must have been a clear night there, huh, Joe?
yeah, I mean, look
Clear.
at that. You're still able to see it that far out. So
We are
no
anticipating core stage
clouds.
engine cutoff at about 8 minutes and 3 seconds. And about 10 seconds later, we'll see core stage separation, at which point Orion and the interim cryogenic propulsion stage will be flying free.
That's very true, Travis. Happy birthday. Terry.
That is a hell of a candle.
1,000 miles per hour, 6 minutes and 15 seconds into the flight of Artemis I, 427 miles downrange. Quiet here on the loops in Mission Control Houston. Teams continue to monitor this first flight.
No one is getting on Slack and making fun of anybody at NASA right now. They're all working and getting everything done.
That's it. Nobody.
Now until that core stage main engine cutoff time. Our 4 core stage engines continue to fire maximum
Minute and a
thrust.
half. So there's still 1 minute and a half from core stage separation. That thing is still burning. And thank you for
Yeah.
joining us, Wendy. Thank you so much. It is truly an epic moment in history.
It is. Nobody talking
Coming
about
up in 7 minutes since
money
launch
wasted
today,
or anything like that right now.
12,800
No.
miles per hour, 563 miles downrange. Again, still quiet here in Mission Control Houston.
No one on Slack. After midnight, it gets weird over here. It gets
As
not
the
eerie.
main engine cutoff, the 4 RS-25 engines are beginning to throttle down.
Oh, let's go faster.
That's it.
Roll the windows down. It'll help with the aerodynamics.
Turn the AC off.
30 seconds now until core stage main engine cutoff. All 4 engines continue to throttle down.
And then we should see Yep, separation right coming up really soon.
Yeah, I know
Now
they were going to have the core
75
stage cut
seconds
off
into flight,
shortly after the
traveling over
8-minute mark.
16,000 miles per hour. Continuing to hear good calls here in Mission Control Houston. We're standing by for core stage main engine cutoff. And we have confirmation of core stage main engine cutoff. Orion is now in Earth's orbit. The flight dynamics officer reports that we have a nominal main engine cutoff. And we just heard the call for core stage separation. That means Orion and the interim cryogenic propulsion stage are now flying free from the core stage of the Space Launch System. The next milestone will be solar array deploy approximately 18 minutes after liftoff. But before
There we go.
Orion stretches its wings, let's check back in with our friends at Kennedy Space Center and hear all about what it was like to hear the rocket roar off the launch pad. Megan and Kayla, I've got to hear all about
let's
it.
hear what they have to say. And
Well,
then,
if you're just joining us, welcome to NASA's Kennedy Space Center, where we just watched Artemis I launch, our first step towards our next adventure into deep space.
they look happy.
As Leah said, I'm NASA's Megan. This is NASA astronaut Kayla Barron. And I'm kind of still giddy and speechless. I don't even know how to explain how I'm feeling right now.
I feel the same way. This is the first launch that I've been able to
I
watch in
know.
person. And I've got to say, it was incredible. It took my breath away and I was tearing up. Just what an amazing accomplishment for this team, this international team, people who have been dedicating their careers to getting this rocket off the ground and taking the first step to getting a crew on that vehicle back to the moon. It was just incredible.
Yeah, this is a moment I think that we're all going to remember where we were when we saw this sort of thing. You know what I mean? And it was great to see, again, when we entered into terminal count, everybody here just started cheering, coming out to get a really good view. And boy, I mean, it lit up the night sky and it just shook everything around us. Did you feel that? Like in my bones, I felt that.
Oh, yeah. The cool thing is just kind of the delay between what you see and what you hear, because of course the sound travels a little bit slower. And it was just amazing. The ground shook. We could hear the thrust pushing that rocket into space. 8.8 million pounds of thrust.
Yes.
It's incredible. It was
That's
amazing
not
to
that
see
much.
here live in person.
How does it compare? So this is your first launch on the ground. How does it compare to your launch when you're in the capsule soaring towards space?
I mean, equally emotional, I think.
Yeah.
We train for everything, and so when we're in that capsule waiting for launch, we're just running our procedures. You could almost
Have a good night, Travis.
trick us and say that we were in the simulator and
Thank
it
you
wasn't
for
real.
hanging out.
Travis. Yeah,
In
appreciate it.
that moment of liftoff, when the thrust builds underneath you, like we saw it today, it's just hard not to be overwhelmed by the emotional experience, the excitement, the joy of that moment. It's incredible.
Yeah, I
Odds
think
are
we can't say it
Falcon
enough.
over SLS
This team
probably.
really deserved this moment.
I'm gonna
They've
drop
been
the volume
working
here,
so
Joe, and then
hard.
we can kind of
Moment went on.
we can kind of finish her out here if you'd like to. I mean, wow,
Yeah, absolutely.
because this thing is flying now. I think that we did the mission that we came to do, which was watch it, which was
Exactly. Share it with everybody else, and have a good time. Hopefully, getting a chance to watch a successful launch. And look, I mean, we've gotten to the point where they've got core separation, and this thing is flying. So they've got a few other things that they've got to do before they make their way to the moon. But man, you couldn't ask for a better start than this.
No, and I mean, at least we didn't have to wait till like the edge of the launch window. I mean, they knew that they were getting all their dominoes lined up so that when they pushed the first one down, that whole thing went down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Don says, over 2 million more pounds of thrust than SLS. Well, what is that, Starship or Falcon Heavy? Oh, no, it has to be Starship, I guess, because
I think so, yeah.
I think even SLS beats Falcon Heavy on thrust.
Right.
Which, yeah, and best birthday ever, Terry says. Happy birthday, Terry. Hope it's a good one. And too bad we couldn't put you on this thing. You'd be the Terrykin instead of the Moonikin, which might have been a little more interesting. I bet Terry would have put his body on the line for science. I know he would have.
Yeah, of course.
Right. I would have probably gone with you.
I had to, that question about what was more exciting, watching this thing or actually being on a rocket as it's going up. Look, it's got to be when you're on the rocket, feeling that thing underneath you, right? As much as we like watching these things, and you've been out there to witness them, I'm sure that being strapped to one of these rockets and making your way up has got to be a much better sensation. So,
Oh yeah, and the view is probably a little better too, honestly.
yeah.
At least after the tower jet goes away and it opens the windows for you or whatever, so you
Yeah.
can see outside. But it looks like everything there is nobody's panicking, running around the room, Joe. It looks like everybody is happy.
Yeah. And I'm looking at some of the tweets right now. Everything looks to be in good working order. So like I said, let's keep our fingers crossed that everything keeps going according to plan. And they've got this mission out to the moon and then back to Earth for a successful splashdown in a number of days. So this is awesome.
Yeah, so I guess we'll be expecting a splashdown somewhere in the neighborhood of Christmas, maybe give or take a few days. I think it was like 40-something days on the long end of the mission, and then 26
Right.
short end. So yeah, somewhere around Christmas, we should get a capsule back from the orbit of the moon, which I think will be very cool to see. Lonnie says it was so smooth. They're all going home. Yeah, why stay around and watch the thing on computer screens when you could just go take a nap? I know all these people in this room would love rest right now.
Just close that laptop and walk away right now. Go take a nap.
We did it.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here.
But you're right, Will. It did say 26 to 42 days for this particular mission. Pretty wide range. But it's going to be sometime December, maybe early January. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, this is awesome. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better start.
Absolutely. And Don, thank you so much for watching with us and hanging out for a little live stream here with Joe and I. For those of y'all that aren't following Joe on all the socials, you got his stuff right there. If I remove this, there you go. At Astro Joe. There he is.
Astro Joe, yeah.
Astro Joe. And you can follow him there. You're on Instagram, TikTok. You're on TikTok, I think, as
TikTok, Instagram. Not doing the Twitter thing as much, but do have something there. But yeah, mostly Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So I appreciate that call out, Will. And of course, Will, you've got a huge following. But if you're not following Will right now, at Deep Sky Dude, you're going to find lots of awesome images, photos, videos, things that. I mean, the things that Will creates sometimes are just absolutely incredible. We showed you the handheld photo of the Orion Nebula earlier. I mean, that's just one of the things. If you like videos of sprites, if you like, just all kinds of things that, Will, you caught an impact on the lunar surface, didn't you?
I did. I was lucky. Yeah, I was lucky or dumb enough to be filming a lunar eclipse in 4K because let's record 4 hours of lunar video for some reason. But I did, and it paid off. In fact, Dawn Davies was one of the people that was like, "Hey, check your data."
Yeah,
you may have, and she's like, "Did you hear about the explosion?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about, explosion?" I videoed an eclipse, and they'll just like, "No, check your data." Her and Becky Remitowski, and so I was like, okay, let me go look. And when I found the little flash of light there, I was ecstatic. Let's just say that was my first viral video. And so, just you never know what you're going to catch when you go out and look at the sky.
No, you don't.
And I know Joe knows that to be true because Joe is as obsessed with the night sky as I am, and some of the others in here, like Lonnie Mosley and some of the others. So get out and view because you never know what you're going to see. You never know what you're going to experience. You never know who you're going to meet. Like right. Travis Hall, thank you for coming, man. And thank you for hanging with us. You never know who you're going to run into out here. Planet Observatory. Y'all give Planet Observatory a follow. Does great planet observing. Does there Mars and Saturn. Does great work with those.
It's got to be the busy season for Planet Observatory right now.
Yeah. Oppositions and conjunctions and everything else is going to be fantastic. Does NASA have a second one of these ready to go soon? No. The other rocket is not ready yet.
May 2024, I believe, is when Artemis II is planned for launch. Obviously there could be delays. They're going to get data back from this particular mission. They might have to update things, make modifications, all of those things. But yeah, they've got to get the full set of data back here, evaluated figure out what's going on. But May 2024 is the current scheduled date for Artemis II.
That's right. And we'll see if that date gets pushed back a little bit too. Of course, it's hard to tell. You know, you never know.
Right.
You never know what's going to happen with all this stuff. But you will see posts from Joe and I about stuff like this in the future. So stay tuned to us, because we are, we're just watching for you, so you don't have to. Right? If you want to watch too with us, go ahead. But we're, we're kind of watching the tweets come across, and just kind of, playing the ear to the ground kind of game to see what's, coming up as far as that goes. And, Joe is the president of the Houston Astronomical Society, which is a great club, a great organization that if you're in the area, you should definitely check out. But if you're not in the area, you should check them out. They do their meetings online, and you can
We
join.
certainly do.
Yeah, and you can do all that. You can get it. You can get your membership done online and all that, even for our club here in Beaumont, if you want to. We don't do much online anymore. We're back to in-person meetings. But yeah, John, thanks for hanging out with us.
Absolutely.
Of course, Jeff, thanks for hanging out. This was a
Appreciate
good
you,
time.
Jeff.
And this was Joe's idea, this live stream tonight. Joe was like, "You want to go live?" And I was like, "No." And then I was like,
I had to twist his arm. Yeah.
yeah. I was like, "No," but then yes. I was like, because they're going to cancel it, but you know how it goes.
Yeah, no, Will, I appreciate you. We kind of did this on a whim. I just reached out to Will and said, "Hey, man, this is looks like it's going to happen tonight. Would you mind jumping on? You want to do this?" And I mean, we've done a number of these already, Will. I always have a great time when we're doing these live streams, and for everybody else who's on with us. I mean, it's even though it's the two of us talking, I really feel like it's everybody that's in here that's participating and hanging out with us to watch this thing, and we all get to celebrate, something awesome like this. So I certainly appreciate everybody else taking the time, and when you could sit there and watch this anywhere else, that you're spending the time with us and watching with us. So thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, and stay tuned for more. Follow Joe here on YouTube, whether you're watching Joe on YouTube or on Facebook. Follow me as well. You've got the platforms. You're on the live watching. You're probably already a subscriber, so we'd love to have y'all. We thank y'all for hanging out with us. I do have some music coming out soon. I've already released an album at the beginning of this year, but I do have some more music coming soon at the end of this year. So I'm excited about that. And I don't know, Joe, why don't you take us home, man? Take us home.
Like we said, successful launch of Artemis. This is the start of something great. And, look, there are a lot of people talking about whether it's going to be SLS or some other, vehicle that's going to get us there. I think the exciting thing is that the investments are being made by NASA to get us back to the moon. And this is just, like we said, the first step. Absolutely awesome. We're witnessing history right now. For many of us, we weren't there to watch the Apollo missions and watch, man walk on the moon, but we get to do it again. And this is really exciting. So appreciate everybody watching with us. Will, I can't wait until we get another opportunity to be out at a star party or somewhere else. And for everybody else, like we said, give Will and myself a follow. We'll keep updates there, and hopefully we'll be able to see y'all out there as well.
Yep. We'll see y'all soon.
Take care, everyone.